that you have. And I would like to summary for this morning, at least to get us started. And so, because when we take a look at Luke chapter 2, we find concepts of, tradition, concepts of customs. The word that's coming to mind, but I don't think it's the word I want, but it's kind of poetic in a sense, where we've got a lot of fun memories, fun things going on, where Caesar issues a decree, all the world should be taxed, riding on a donkey, being registered, angels singing to shepherds in the sky, all of this fantastic stuff, and yet all the charm and all the memories that we see there is actually rooted in fact. It's rooted in with dates and reasonings and locations and so forth. But before we get into some of the ins and outs of all that, I wanted to explore some memories with you. Christmas Day, Christmas Eve, Advent, all the things leading up to Christmas Day throughout the years of your life. What are some of your favorite memories, traditions, customs?
We were stuck in Fort Nelson, Canada, on Christmas Day, driving up to Alaska. From California, no less. And when we got to Dawson Creek, motorhome froze up, so we had to stop at water.
Okay.
And get snow tires, we had proper tires.
Yeah.
And I used to say we had to go shop at our little store to get kids presents.
Yeah.
But we spent Canada that day.
Yeah. Christmas in Canada. Awesome. Yes, ma'am.
So, I remember it was Christmas, I got my bike. One bike when I was a kid. I had friends who got a bike every year. I got one bike.
Yeah.
And so we were at my mother's parents' house. Their house they lived in when I was with my mother didn't like that for growing up in. And I remember there was a lava lamp, which is important because Gus and I wanted and got a lava lamp. And I wish I had that lava lamp. But, anyway, so we traveled the 8 hours from Mobile to Piggott, Arkansas. And because the bike is not easy to sneak in the car as a Christmas present, the only way my hint was that there was a bike chain in my stocking.
Oh, fun.
So I didn't get a whole lot else, but I did get a bike chain in my stocking. And so when we got home after the trip, my brother and I both actually had bicycles, and his had handbrakes, and mine had foot brakes.
Uh-huh.
They had the same checkered flag pads on them, and that was the difference. Well, later that day, we were riding the bikes, and both of us on my bike convinced me to ride him on my bike. And that was the first time I'd ever ridden a big bike.
Yeah.
And it ended up with a rip in the seat. So here we, 30 years later, more than 30 years later, I went back to the shed. My brother has the house now. I went back to the shed, and my bicycle was still in the shed. And so he let me have my bicycle back.
Yay.
It has the same seat. It's dry rotted now. But
Yeah.
it still has the same rim.
Awesome.
And, so we're hoping we can get it refurbished.
There you go.
But yeah, no snow that year. And it was a little house that my grandparents were in. A good year.
Awesome.
I'll share something. So I don't know if it's memorable, but I think it's more of a cultural thing.
I'm sorry?
I said, you want me to speak louder?
Sure.
Okay, so I said, this is not really a memorable experience, but more of a difference in culture and how we celebrate Christmas
Uh-huh.
in the Philippines versus here. So I moved here when I was 12 years old, and over there, presents is not really a big deal. I mean, we have a tree, but there's no presents under it. So the way we do it is like, everything is like on Christmas Eve, so we'll have like a 10 o'clock service, and it'll probably last about an hour and a half. And then, you get out about 11:30 at night, and everybody stay up till 12 o'clock. And so it's always a big gathering, so, people who can't really afford it, they go to other people's houses, but it's really like a big thing. So at 12 o'clock, for those who have money, for instance, so when it hits 12, everybody scream Merry Christmas, and then fireworks shots everywhere. Kind of like 4th of July here,
Uh-huh.
there we celebrate it for Christmas and New Year.
Yep.
And so, you scream, and then that's where you have big feasts too. So, you're eating like a big feast at 12 o'clock at night. And you follow that with karaoke, dancing, and people get drunk. And like, just a party, really.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then so when I came here, I turned 13 while I was here. It was like, why is it so boring? It was so quiet, like we didn't really go to the service. We slept, and then this whole Santa Claus thing, right? And I'm just like, I don't get it. Like, I just didn't get the whole Santa Claus thing.
Yep.
It's like, okay, sure, I'll believe it. And then I figure out, I was like, no, this is crap. I remember I wanted 13 presents. 1, 2, 3, okay, there's 13 there. But I don't want to see a fat man, or I stayed up all night, your typical, like, you're on the living room waiting for somebody, just like, no.
Yeah.
But then, it was it was a lot of presents. It was like big, huge feast versus,
Just not at midnight.
sleep, right? Like, you sleep about midnight, I guess, and you just stay there till 2 in the morning.
Stay up late. Party, karaoke.
So that was one of my cultures.
Well, thank you. I wasn't even thinking about culture and so forth, but same thing? Yeah?
One, it was freezing, and two, you're like, it's weird, you kind of take it for granted.
Yeah.
And my second one was, we had, Christmas at the Waffle House. My parents like, we gotta go straight through, and it's like, we were hungry. So that's the only thing.
Mm. Yeah, growing up in Minnesota, snow every other day, and it's July. But I get down to Texas, and there's a song in Houston, no such thing as White Christmas in Houston or something like that, and so the 80-degree Christmases that I would have in Texas was like, this is a little warm for Christmas, So, yeah, you get used to it and all that kind of thing, but indeed.
We had Christmas in Australia a couple of years. And the Santa's sleigh was pulled by kangaroos. And it was, turkeys were, this is the late 90s, over the top expensive. So you had prawns, you had, what was it called? I can't think of the name now, but we didn't have, we did buy a turkey one year, but it was a little tiny one that cost like a whole bunch of money.
Yeah. More money than turkey, huh? Oof. Yeah, I suppose you guys are praying for 80 degrees. Cool down a little bit.
Well, anybody who put out decorations, they usually melted.
Yeah. Well, I think a memory that my family really enjoys and remembers. So we were in South Dakota and Wisconsin, and states that get lots of snow during the winter time. And we get down to Texas and get covered by snow. And then we'd like, nope, this is Texas. There's no snow in Texas. So, but other memories?
So there's just a lot of different things here, and so we moved in October, so it wasn't too far to Christmas. And during Christmas season, we had a progressive dinner with the church, his church. And so that was really something we've never done before. And it was really fun to go to the different houses, and like some of them made wine, and so it's kind of like, and then like the pastor's wife brewed beer. And I'm like, I was just like, shocked because a lot of things here, they're different. California, you can drive with a beer, and I remember somebody, they were changing the law where you can drink beer and drive, and there was actually somebody like, so I'm supposed to go all the way to Gunnerville, because he goes boating, and so he couldn't drink beer while he drove 1 hour.
Yep. Yeah. I remember, we didn't travel all that much growing up. But I remember spending a couple of times when we were driving in the back window of the car instead of sitting down where you're supposed to. But other memories? Johnny? Uh-huh. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Indeed. Yeah. Yeah. Well, imagine the culture shock that many of you have mentioned coming from other countries and other states. But imagine the culture shock that can I call them the royal family here for a moment? Mary, Joseph, and baby Jesus must have had going from one community to the next, riding on a donkey, the different emotions that they must have been going through. As a man, Joseph's thinking about how can he care for his family. As a woman, Mary's probably thinking, oh my gosh, this donkey's cutely uncomfortable. Get me out of here. Give me a Holiday Inn, perhaps, huh? But more specifically, ladies, how would you relate to Mary being 8.5, 9 months pregnant, ready to be done?
Suppose God gave her an easy labor, because it was his son.
I hope that
Yeah.
I had Jewish babies, so my last month pregnancy.
Yeah. Oh my goodness.
We often picture them like all alone in the stable, and I just don't think that's realistic. Joseph hadn't had kids yet
all of these things, and, I mean, for her, she's never even been with a man, so embarrassed and modest and nervous, I just can't, I realize, like, the pain kind of takes over and you don't necessarily think about it, but you're with a guy that you've not even really been with. I mean, technically you're married, but I just feel like she must have felt so alone and scared, and to be in that situation and not have your mom there or your sister there or it's not like she could call her and be like, Mom, is this normal? It's like, how do I do this?
Yeah.
It's just hanging out with Joseph's family, who she doesn't even know, and it's kind of like that joke of your mother-in-law, and so this is who she's got helping her, some distant relative 90 miles away that they don't even know. I just feel like God obviously takes her and took care of her, and it was fine, but
Yeah.
I really think about that.
There's some stories here, she may have been 12.
Yeah, early teenage, yeah. Yeah. And Joseph was quite a bit older, so there's a lot of weird emotions that must have been going through that family.
So I'm looking at the geography,
Mm-hmm.
and so it's in Bethlehem, or it was in the northern hemisphere. Looking at this, and they're a little bit north of our longitude around. So anyway, I mean, it might have been a little bit more cold, but I don't know. If they get snow there.
Up in the, I mean, it's not real mountainous like, say, the Rockies, but it's enough of an elevation that you would get a little bit colder temperatures. But then you also have, in the Dead Sea area, the lowest point on the earth. And so you're kind of getting some Death Valley type concepts going on. I suppose it all depends upon which part of the year you're at. So this idea of you got the various emotions going through the royal family's minds at that time. But there's another group of people, the shepherds, that also must have been having some awkward or weird thoughts or surprising thoughts. They're out in the, as the story tells us, this by shepherds watching their flocks by night. And so that always gives us the picture of calm and sweet and serene and all the things. And, we've all seen starry nights, and we all kind of wistfully gaze off into the stars and just enjoying the moment, I suppose. But if you're out there all night, and granted this is night, and my brother, he oftentimes, or not often, it's more than that, works the graveyard shift as a police officer up there in Minnesota. And he often talks about, you work it long enough and your internal clock gets flipped, and so you're able to adjust and get through it probably a lot easier than people who, usually sleep during the nighttime. But my guess is, you work an 8-hour shift of whatever, and you got moments where you're stifling a yawn or you're trying to have an extra cup of coffee to stay awake. But imagine the shepherd's point of view for a moment. They're out there. The sheep are they probably still have their clock set to normal time in a sense. There's probably sheep, they're sleeping and dozing and whatever. The shepherds are probably, trying to put toothpicks in their eyelids and keep them open a little bit. And then the angels appear. Put yourself in the shoes for a moment, which I know is kind of hard to do, but what kind of emotions would you have? perspectives. If you're looking back on those moments, what kind of memories would you be telling me right now?
You know, it doesn't say anything about the sheep. Okay? And from a farmer's perspective, sheep are a very skittish animal.
Yeah?
So a bunch of ancient
Yeah.
I don't think they're gonna just kind of lay there and go, oh, this is pretty neat.
Yeah.
I'm thinking they're gonna book.
Yeah.
So here's these shepherds going, there they go.
Yeah.
Oh, we got angels.
Yeah.
Oh, my goodness. What do I do?
You know, that's a very good perspective to take. Because we've all been in that moment, I would imagine, where, some of us have an easier time of this than others. I'm not one of them. But you're trying to do multiple things at the same time. You got little children literally pulling you this way, and you're trying to talk to this person about that, and then your eye catches something moving on over here, and you're trying to keep an eye on the clock. By the way, this is most Sunday mornings. You're trying to get started by 10:15, and it's usually 10:30 by the time you actually get started.
I think it's probably they're probably fairly easy to a lot of people, you have the sound of sheep and pretty quiet, nighttime it's probably pretty quiet, and you probably have somebody that's on the lookout for any wolves or anything like that, so, but they're, probably pretty peaceful
Yeah.
all the time, and, so, quite shocking. Just to have that.
Yeah.
Of course, the angels always say fear not, like the first thing.
Yeah. And, they say, fear not, peace be with you. And then you always wonder, do they have moments of fear not and peace be with you? Or are they, being with the skittish sheep and stuff, trying to see the sheep scatter? You got this literally angelic proclamation going on. And you're trying to act like you're paying attention, but also keeping responsibility with the sheep, or in maybe our perspectives, children, or whatever you want to, talk about here. Do you suppose, and we're talking in the realm of supposition and possibility at the moment, because none of us were there at Luke chapter 2, but do you suppose whether it's the angel or the shepherds talking to the angels, or the royal family traveling 90 miles, can't find a place to lodge, they're all tired and everybody's denying them entrance, no room, no compassion, no whatever. Do you suppose there's some divine influence going on, keeping everybody, as you say, calm and fear not? And
Been welcomed into the inn. She probably would have had some women around, but there would have been a lot of commotion and a lot of, maybe gossip or, just a lot of attention.
mm-hmm.
And it wouldn't have been the quiet, humble beginning that it was. It would have been, I guess, much more of what you would hope it would be. Someone traveling and getting the attention of other women who probably had that experience.
Yeah,
Assisting with them.
yeah, indeed. It's Kat.
A couple things that, like you were saying, all these things were kind of for God to come to earth. God came, first of all, he's born under these circumstances in a manger, and then they announced the birth to the shepherds to that world, they were unclean.
Yep.
And so the whole thing is just crazy. And then another thing I think about
Yeah.
Like, yeah.
When they go visit, what do they do with the sheep? You can't just leave them hanging out by themselves.
I know they had like tents in town. And
Yep.
They could bring, it wasn't like as easy became like this.
Yeah. Yeah, indeed.
Maybe they threw straws for somebody to stay behind.
Yeah. That's rookie initiation, huh? Right?
I just can't imagine how hard it would have been. God certainly didn't make it easy on Jesus on the cross. He didn't intervene and make
Yeah.
anything be easier
Yeah.
then. So I can't imagine that he would intervene
Oh, there's a,
during the birth. And so all the things we've been saying, have to be at least threefold.
yeah. Wow. That's an interesting perspective and comparison to make, yeah.
So I have another thought that, um, so we, when we imagine, the picture of these angels appearing in the sky or appearing down at the angels, down at the shepherd, I think most people imagine like a human figure and the wings, like the picture of but in like Revelation, the angel that appears has a whole bunch of wings and a whole bunch of
Yep.
eyes,
Yep.
all this other kind of stuff. So there's a couple of different pictures of angels. So, which are we getting humanoid angel or are we getting
Yeah, right.
many-eyed angel? And is that part of the reason it looks so stunning is and so different is that it's completely
Yeah. Yeah. How many is a host? Yep. Yeah, Ellie.
I thought about how the shepherds did question them, like Mary and Joseph and Zechariah, every time angels would come, well, how or why,
Yeah.
or I don't understand. The shepherds don't question, they just
That's a fun thought. Shepherds didn't really question. They just the verse 11, is it 12? Let us go over to Bethlehem and see this thing that has happened, which the Lord has made known to us. So, yeah, there's really no kind of either inquisitive question about what's going to, okay, so how's this going to happen? Or you want me to show you a sign? It was in our Old Testament reading last night, Isaiah, I believe it was. No, I don't want to put the Lord to the test and, okay, well, this will be the sign for you. For unto us a child shall be born. But the shepherds just go. Kind of reminds me at least of, yes, sir?
Yeah, I was going to say, in some ways it's unremarkable, right?
Okay.
They're going to see something unremarkable versus, I was reading Samuel, the house of David, he gets this nice house. Like, if you were to go visit David or Solomon, like that would have been something to behold.
Yeah.
Here, in some ways, they're seeing the child in the manger and that's it. It's not a king.
Yeah. Let's go see a barn.
Yeah.
And hay and donkeys and,
You see that every day, the shepherds.
yeah. A child being born in a barn, that's probably not a new concept back then. Yeah. Yeah, yeah. I saw some other hands. Yep.
Well, I was thinking that when I was little, doing that, if y'all remember the original Nintendo, and now they've got all the different game systems, but like the original one when that came out, I wanted one so bad, and I asked for one for like 2 or 3 years for Christmas in a row, and I never got it. And so I just stopped asking. And then that Christmas, I remember it was getting close to Christmas, and my mom was like, I thought you wanted a Nintendo, and I was like, yeah, but I'm never gonna get one. I gave up. And then of course that year, I got the Nintendo like after I gave up, and I'm thinking, like that was, and in a child, 2 or 3 years is like a lifetime, right? But for them, they had waited generations of lifetimes for this Savior to come, and they all thought he was going to come as a king. So it's really remarkable that the shepherds, like what Ellie was saying,
Yeah.
everything happened. Probably in the same way we think of Jesus' second coming. I don't know, we hope for it, right? But do any of us really think like, oh, he's going to come tomorrow, right? Like, I don't know that we think like that. And yet they believed immediately, even though they wouldn't have thought it was in their lifetime, even though they all thought he'd come as a king. Why would he come as a shepherd? I don't know that I would have had the faith that if an angel would come, I'd probably be like, I don't know, I'm pretty sure we all just had a hallucination. We'll find those things. I don't know.
What's in your coffee?
I kind of think about too, like Simeon, when he was told he was king. And if he was like really, really old, I wonder if he would get like, is he really ever going to get
These were aging like, come on, Lord, let's go.
Yeah.
Ready to go home.
I'm not in the days of Methuselah when I'm going to live 900 years old. Let's get this going, Lord. Indeed. And that's perhaps one of the, even though we have all the charm of this story and memories of the story of Christmas growing up, current day, and so forth, we find that this is still very, very factual and still plays a huge role in God's plan of salvation. That this idea that the king, not of just Judea or Babylon or Egypt or some other geographical area of the biblical world or even the modern day world, but the king of the universe, king of heaven itself, would be, the big fancy theological word would be to humiliate himself from his state of exaltation and to come to earth in a humiliated, to be a human, to be on our level. In a lot of ways, that's very humbling to us to think about humiliation. What comes to mind when you think of being humiliated? Usually you don't feel that good, do you? Shameful, and other such descriptive words. But and that's true too, If you don't aim for the target, you'll hit nothing, right? If you aim for nothing, you hit nothing. But even if Jesus had been born in the richest, fanciest palace on earth, it still would have been a state of humiliation for him, because nothing on this earth is going to even come close to comparing to his heavenly throne. We have small glimpses, you might say, in Revelation and Daniel and other apocalyptic writings of the throne of heaven. I love Isaiah 6, where Isaiah is up there, finds himself suddenly up there, he's doing his thing, and all of a sudden, boom, he's in the throne room of the Heavenly Father. And after a moment of adjusting, I suppose, he holds up his Wild Coyote sign and says, uh-oh, and says, woe is me, a man of unclean lips, and I am now before God himself, and so forth. And there's other such instances. We might talk about St. John in the book of Revelation, and he getting to view all of heaven and just trying to imagine everything going through a sinful human brain. Then this idea of God now coming in the opposite direction, coming down to earth. Perhaps setting the stage for us to understand, when we think of palaces, we think of rich, we think of fine, we think of beautiful, we think of expensive, something not us, perhaps. But we do relate with a barn, stable, donkeys, sheep, animals, shepherds, perhaps even. We do relate with that, and perhaps we have certain thoughts that come into our minds regardless. And we think the God of heaven has placed himself on this earth for us. Perhaps, at least in my mind, and And I'm always thinking theologically, perhaps, and pastorally, and all that kind of a thing. But this little child, this little boy, grows up to eventually die upon a cross. Another concept that you would not think of a king, a god, ever doing. And yet he does that for us. And it's not until, in my opinion, not until Easter morning that we see what this baby boy, this man, this God is all about. Because what other king, what other emperor, pharaoh, whatever word you want to use for the top dog, is able to come back from death? You see all kinds of movies and read stories and stuff about people wanting to be immortal, right? How many movies have we seen about looking for the fountain of youth and other such things? But do we ever really truly see some kind of movie or book where the main person, the hero of the story, actually dies but then comes back to life 3 days later? So when we read this story, and we are once again out of time here, we got to get going to the worship service. But when you read this chapter, or Matthew chapter 1, or John chapter 1, or Mark chapter 1, where we're talking about the Christmas story, and we remember all the different emotions going on, all the charm, we are able to, especially in Luke chapter 2, remember the historical fact that this took place at a specific time. This took place at a specific place, a specific location. God had a specific reason for it happened. This wasn't just some arbitrary event that happened and all the things seemed to happen to fall into place. But like I think, Alison, you were mentioning, as children, 2 to 3, 4 years, that's a lifetime. Now as an adult, we blink your eye and it's 4 years later. For the Old Testament people, we were talking thousands of years from Genesis to Luke chapter 2. That promise is finally being fulfilled. That the people are not just saying, oh, one day it'll happen, but actually, hey, this is happening now. I get to see it. And so Simeon, now let thou thy servant depart in peace. For my eyes have seen thy salvation. And so today, as you go home to your families, to your friends, you have seen thy salvation. And one day the Lord will call you home and say, well done, good and faithful servant. Let us close with the Lord's Prayer. Our Father, well, thanks for coming, and I'll see you right over there in just a few minutes.